Louis, first of all, welcome to the 700th episode of my show. I don't know if you knew that was going to happen. You didn't.
No, why would I know? No.
I didn't prepare you for that. I'm putting you in the position to celebrate me and my success for a few minutes. This is the 700th episode.
You keep having to say it both ways.
Well,
is that proper to say it's the 700th episode?
Sure, I think it is. Yeah. And I'm excited you're here, but it was a surprise coincidence. And
yeah, well,
thank you. Well, maybe
congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me say that before you say thank you.
No, I thought I would set it up like this. If I go I really appreciate you coming and doing my 700th episode. That means a lot to me. I'm glad you were able to make time. Like it was planned.
Right. No, listen, I'm very proud of you. You've done... I don't think you can do anything 700 times unless it's working.
No.
You know what I mean?
Well...
Do you think there's 700 of anything that was just
shitty?
Shit? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, plenty of thousands. Trillions of
most things.
Yes, that's right. Boy, you fell down those stairs fast. Yeah, I am very proud of you because this is a very meaningful thing that you do. I mean, you've had a lot of really important things going on in this garage.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And now
big deal things. The president
was there.
You know, Robin Williams.
I was at his house. That one.
Yeah, but I mean,
by your podcast.
Okay, all right.
What?
I'm trying to say something nice here.
No, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's great.
I made some. Thank you.
Great. Keith Richards.
Yeah. Al Bell.
Al Bell. Did you really do Al Bell? See, that is a great thing.
It's the greatest.
The people that you've brought together under one thing. It's really something, man.
Yeah, I mean, they've all done it. They've all.
Yeah.
You know, it's weird. I actually had some notes that I left inside. Hold on.
Okay. He's actually leaving.
Weird shit on the mic when I'm not there.
He just left the garage. I'm alone in the garage. He left. He's in his house. And okay, I'll play his song, I guess. Okay.
I remember when you played guitar publicly. I can't talk today. At the Montreal Comedy Festival. I'm really fucked up. My brain's fucked up. You remember you did Cunty McShitballs?
That's right. Cunty McShitballs.
And I was like, what? Wait, why is and everyone loved it.
It's the only time I ever played guitar on stage, I think.
And I witnessed it.
Yeah, people went crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
And you brought your guitar to do it. I remember. No?
I did?
Is that possible?
No, I wouldn't have taken my guitar to
that was the night in Montreal where Bob and Dave did the farting Gary thing, wasn't it?
Farting Gary. Yeah, everybody was there.
Yeah.
Dom Herrera was the host.
Right. And it was amazing. And I think you just made up that song, right?
Yes.
It was like the Ballad of Cunty McShitballs.
That's right.
And everyone thought it was amazing.
Yeah, whatever, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it was kind of... No, it was... I remember feeling really high after. Really happy.
Because you sang and played guitar.
Yeah, that
right?
That feels good no matter what happened. Yeah, the bit was that I went on and I wore a suit.
Right.
And I did the jokes I had then that were very sort of Seinfeldian, 5 minutes on Letterman, clean jokes.
Right. Yeah.
And I was doing good, but we had planned this thing, so I had people planted around the audience. I remember one of them was Ginny Garofalo.
Yeah.
And as I'm doing my jokes that are landing solidly, people start yelling out, "Cunty!"
Oh, that's right.
"Cunty!"
That's right. Yeah.
And I'm like ignoring it. People once, "Cunty! Cunty!"
Yeah,
and then I get upset. I go, "Listen, I used to have this stage name, Cunty McShitballs.
Right.
And I used to come out and play the guitar and do a whole character, and it used... But I want to be a mainstream comedian now. I want to, I want to be clean and be on Letterman. I don't want to be trapped in this thing anymore. And they're just chanting "Cunty, Cunty," and then even the audience who didn't know about it started chanting it.
Yeah.
And then I rip off the suit and I'm wearing this black T-shirt and somebody hands me a guitar.
Right.
And I sang this song. My name is Cunty McShitballs.
Right. That's so. Remember when no one knew who you were? You could do things.
I could do.
You could do secret things.
Yeah.
But you did. You actually did that with the Horace and Pete. Now here's the deal with that.
Yeah.
For me.
Okay.
Because you came in here and we had a long conversation about Horace and Pete, and I was sworn to secrecy.
We sat in this
for an hour.
spot with even the microphones in front of our mouths without tape
and you were
rolling.
like, "You're not taping, right? You're not taping." And you told me the entire process with excitement.
Yeah.
And you didn't know what was going to happen.
That's right.
And then you were like, you can't say anything to anybody.
Right. It was a big secret.
And you didn't record this, right? Right.
And
then like a day later, you're like, "Nah, we fucking should have
recorded
for
it.
later, for any time."
Yeah, didn't have to play it.
Top
right away.
secret.
So dumb.
But it was. I was excited for you, and I got excited. And I watched the first episode, and then I kind of slacked, and I knew you were coming today, so I watched them all, and I watched them pretty much back to back. Like I guess I binge watched them. I was locked in, and at the end, I did not feel great.
No, I can't imagine you would. Yeah, it's not an uplifting show. It's a down pushing.
It's the
show.
opposite.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of uplifting.
Yeah.
But what struck me, and I imagine what struck a lot of people, it was so relentless, and bleak in a way. But because people, I imagine, ask you is it a comedy? There's no way you can say it's a comedy. It's a tragedy. It's structurally a tragedy, right?
Yeah, that's actually a very good observation because a lot of people say it's either comedy or drama, but no, there's tragedies. The other one. Those are the two masks there,
right? And it's structured that way.
It is. It's a tragedy
without spoiling the end.
Well, because there's hope, and hope is that there's no tragedy without hope,
right?
So yes, it's tragedy.
But let's I know you went on Stern, and right now you're going to be doing a tour to promote it.
Yeah.
So it only went out to the people on your mailing list. And then and the only people who I retweeted, I talked about it on here. So it was a secret thing.
That's right, especially at the outset. Yeah.
But the plan was always to do what you're doing now, which is you're now it's out, it's finished. I'm going to promote it.
That's right.
So the questions I have about it, I don't want to rush or I have a lot on my mind.
Yeah.
Because I've known you a while,
Yeah.
and my first reaction when I heard that you were on Stern, you said you got into debt, and it was like millions of dollars, and everybody was like, "Jesus, Louis, millions of dollars in debt." I'm saying, I thought, and I've said this to people, this behavior is not unusual for Louis. The amount is different.
That's right. Because I've always
this is how he creates. He needs to wipe the slate clean and be in complete financial fear, and then he'll do something amazing. It was a plan.
That's right.
Right? But then just a higher money amount.
Bigger money amounts, and also, I figured that I wanted to play with my own money here. I didn't want to mess around with other people's money because the things I was doing were going to be very extreme, Not only the way the story was going to be told, but the way I was going to release it. Everything I did was counterintuitive.
And why would you want to involve anyone in that conversation?
Yeah, I don't want to have to convince anybody of anything or risk their money when I know that I was taking a deep risk.
Well, the thing, because you had not really, said it, you just put your other show on hiatus.
That's right.
And I imagine you had to have a conversation with Fox about this.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And what did you say to them?
Okay, so I told John Landgraf at FX that I was going to stop doing Louis in May, I think it was late May, and I just told him that I didn't know I would ever make another one, and that I might, but I needed it to be okay if I never do.
Yeah,
I didn't want to owe it anymore.
Right,
and it was a hard thing for him to hear.
Yeah,
and it was unexpected. I had told him I was going to do at least 7 seasons. I kind of promised him that.
Yeah.
I'm only saying kind of because I'm ashamed at how much I really promised it. But anyway, I told him I just creatively that's where I'm at, and he respected it.
Right.
And then we made we renewed my overall deal there to make other TV shows, like Baskets, Pamela's show, these other shows.
What's that going to be called?
Better Things.
Yeah.
In the fall, it'll be on. They're producing it now. It's being made now. So I renewed that deal, and he gave me a big bump and more, better deal this second time around. So I figured, okay, I'm going to stop doing Louis. I'll work on these other shows for FX.
Yeah.
And see what else comes to me, know?
Yeah.
So I did that, and then the summer happened, and I really cleared my head.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you about this sort of why I made the show, but you asked one question, so I'll get to that. Once I decided I was making this show,
Horace and Pete. How realized was it in your head?
When I talked to them about it?
Well, no, just in general. So you had that conversation, but you did not have Horace and Pete?
I did no Horace and Pete in my head.
Right.
I figured I'm not going to do anything for a while.
Right.
And then I'm having my summer, and then I started thinking about what can I do for FX? Like, I want to make something for them.
Yeah.
I started thinking of show ideas in general.
Yeah.
One of them I thought of was Albert Brooks and me doing the
animation thing.
show.
Yeah.
And we're working on that. And then I started thinking about just shows I like and things. And I watched a thing called Abigail's Party.
Yeah.
Abigail's Party you can watch on YouTube. It's like the only place to see it now.
Yeah.
Michael Lee, the filmmaker from
Genius.
England. Amazing filmmaker.
Oh, yeah.
Largely an improvisational filmmaker.
Is that true?
Well, a lot of his movies that are like real, like Secrets and Lies.
And there's so many that were so good.
Incredible movies. Even Mr. Turner, the more recent one that nobody gave a shit about.
Naked?
Naked.
Oh my God.
So he was a playwright in the 70s. It's like he had this whole great career as a playwright in the 70s where he wrote plays. That's writing. Right. He wrote a play called Abigail's Party. Uh-huh. And all it is about 4 people in the suburbs of London or wherever in England. Yeah. They're neighbors. Yeah. That don't know each other, and they have drinks. Yeah. 2 hours of one scene. 4 people.
And you watched a production of the play?
Well, what it is they did a play. They did a TV version of the play, and this was 1973. So it looked like All in the Family, any show that was shooting back then, Maude or something.
Right, but not unusual for British. I mean, they did a lot of theater.
They did stuff like that.
I think they did Pinter stuff. They did, Playhouse 90 or whatever it was.
Right, and but so they would. It looked like a sitcom in that it was shot multi-camera. You could tell there was somebody live switching the cameras. Right. And you have 4 characters talking.
Audience?
No audience. That was the thing, and it was funny.
Right.
I was laughing out loud, and there's silence.
Yeah.
But it's not silence. It's like it's a sound stage. There's a living feeling to it, and it's performed, and you feel that you've seen a whole performance that never changed.
You utilize that a lot in Horace and Pete.
That's right. So when I watched that, I was like, doesn't exist in the American TV diet. It doesn't exist anywhere.
Anymore.
No, but here's the thing. Even Playhouse 90, the way that was produced was they'd take a play, like a known play.
Right.
You know, Eugene O'Neill or something or whatever. They'd take a known play and they would rehearse it for whatever, probably weeks and weeks, and hash it out the way that they take a play and they dissect it, whatever they do. I've never been part of that process, but I know it takes a long time.
Sure.
But to me, the idea was, what if you made a series? What if you made 10 episodes of something like this that has a hybrid? So it's episodic like television.
Right.
But the medium feels like a play. And yet also like a sitcom because it'll look robust the way a sitcom, multi-cameras, a decent set. I started thinking of this, right? After I watched Abigail's Party, and I just started turning on like my whole body. I got so fucking excited.
Now, had you had conversations with theater people? Had you met Annie Baker at this point?
I hadn't met Annie Baker. What happened was I think
you just emailed her.
I saw the play.
The flick or the other one?
The flick.
Yeah.
The only one of hers I ever saw. And then you told me you had her on your podcast. Right. And I was like, oh, I saw that play. That's a great play. And I thought I should reach out to her because I want to learn something from a playwright about this thing.
Sure.
But I think I was already working on it at the time. I don't remember where I was.
I don't
know where I was in the process. But anyway, I started thinking. I knew what I wanted it to feel like. Yeah. And I knew the idea of something that looks like a sitcom, the way a sitcom feels theatrical. Right. But with no laugh track. Right. That already, a sitcom with no laugh track, I was like, bang, I want to see that.
And also not the expectation to be funny. And not to write joke to joke.
That's right. And then also taking from Abigail's Party, 2 hours of talking, riveting, because you're really staying... single camera movies, they move on the cuts. They move on a big music cue. Yeah. Or a camera movement. Right. Or the ability to jump in time and space, which is something you weirdly take for granted in movies.
Well, not unlike your show.
Right.
Woo,
on my show, you're talking to a guy, you're watching a guy talk, and then within the same second, you're seeing something in another time and place. Right. That's what moves single camera. Yeah. Is the editing and the cinematography. Mm-hmm. In stage plays or in multi-camera worlds,
no time jumps.
No,
really.
You move on the dialogue and on on a moment, a person's mood shifting in front of you, in front of the audience. Yeah, someone saying something to somebody else and that changing, a piece of news being revealed, a person entering the room. And also something accumulating, penting up for a long time.
Yeah.
I never played with this kind of shit before.
Right.
I never did it before, and I got so excited by it. And yeah, when I saw the flick, I remember nothing happens in the flick. It's three people that work in a movie theater.
One set.
And they just talk
with
about
big
life
pauses.
And sometimes about each other, long pauses.
She writes them in.
The pauses.
If you look at her script,
it's
she has a glossary of pauses.
That's amazing.
Like what they mean in the script, how long each one should be. I think there's 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, she was doing something that I had never seen before, and I took my 14-year-old daughter to see the flick.
Yeah.
And she's 14, and she watched. It's like 4 hours long.
It's a few hours, yeah.
And
2.5 maybe.
I think it gets up to 3.
Okay, maybe, yeah.
So why did I say 4? But it's
okay.
about 3 something. My 14-year-old daughter loved it. I mean, she's a bright kid, but even then,
so that means something.
Yeah, it does. And so, okay, so anyway, I started thinking about this thing, and I'm like, well, what's it about, you know? And my buddy Dino Stamatopoulos was over, and he and I had talked about doing a show in a bar someday, and I thought, like, a bar is a good idea for a sitcom.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's been done.
Right.
And then I thought, well, I want this thing to be a bar and a home. 2 sets.
Yeah.
And I wanted them to be connected so that you could walk from one to the other without cutting the camera. Because my first thought was we never cut. We never go. It's a 1-scene episode every time. That was my first idea, which I abandoned.
Right. After like 3.
Yeah, no, there's none that are not 1 scene.
Are you?
So no, the episode 3 is 1 scene. That's the only one that's 1 scene.
Right.
So anyway, then I thought, well, why would there be an apartment above a business? Well, because it's a family business. They live upstairs, they work downstairs.
Yeah.
So that's how I got to family business. And then somehow the names Horace and Pete just came
out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. I thought, who am I? I'm not me. I don't want to play me. I wasn't even sure I was going to be in it.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about things like I could do an episode that's 3 hours long.
Sure.
I could do an episode that's 10 minutes long.
Right.
I could do whatever I want, not on television, not on FX. I started testing this idea against everything that I need. I'm required to do for FX, what their needs are, which are not those are their needs.
Right.
The ad breaks.
Yeah.
Forget it.
And
you can't do it.
Intermissions whenever you want.
Right. But on this show, if I had to do an ad break every 5 ad breaks, forget it. Having one episode that's an hour and another one that's 30 minutes, big problem.
Right.
Not as big on FX than anywhere else, but still a problem.
Right.
The language, cunt, nigger. I mean, I just knew I was going to fly around.
Yeah.
So I thought, and also then the main thing, I didn't want to promote this show, and I didn't want to give the audience a big head start. I didn't want them to smell it before they got to it.
No expectations.
No expectations
knowledge
at all. No knowledge or expectations.
Right.
Forget it on FX. Forget it. So I look, and I realize, well, in my overall deal, I've got an out. I can do something on my website. It's the one place I can do something else.
Right.
But that's because they think it's going to be a stand-up special or a cooking show with me and my mom. I mean, what would I do?
Right.
And at the
it's
time,
a website. Yeah.
And when I started to conceive this, I thought this will be little.
Yeah.
And then I thought about a TV studio that I worked at for my show. I shot these David Lynch episodes in a TV set that's in the Penn Hotel in New York City.
Oh, when he was the network,
the late night
guru guy.
Yeah. So I remembered that studio, and I thought we could shoot there. And I went a little crazy. I called my producer Blair Briard, and I said, "Find out if the Penn Hotel is available for January." And she said, "Okay." She called back and she said, "It is, but we're going to have to if you want it, you got to put a deposit down. Whatever it was, $200,000."
Yeah.
I'm like, do it. Just put the money down now. I didn't have anything written. I didn't know who's in the show. Nothing. I said, grab the studio. But here's the thing.
You wanted incentive.
I'm smart because it was incentive. But since I took the studio, about 5 different productions offered us money to walk away from it because studio space is rare in New York City.
Right.
So I could have just speculated and made a profit on that money. They would have paid the rent and given me like $50,000 just to walk away from it. But as it turned out, we wanted the studio. Okay. So then Steve Buscemi called me. Yeah. We're friends.
Out of nowhere?
He and I did a benefit together for the mayor, this Made in New York thing. And he was a firefighter, and he is very active in 9/11 charities.
Yeah.
So I asked Steve one day, hey, if you ever give me an opportunity to help, you know?
Yeah.
So he called me and said, hey, we're doing this thing for the firefighters if you want to do it. And I said, sure. And then he said, how you doing? And we'd never really chatted. I'm like, oh, I'm all right. What are you doing? Boardwalk Empire's over. Just sitting around. I'm like, oh, well, I'm doing all right. I'm writing something. We hung up.
Yeah.
And then I called him immediately back. I said, hey, do you want to be on a TV show with me?
Yeah.
And he's like, maybe. And I said, meet me in New York tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I drove into New York.
Yeah.
He came into the city from upstate.
Yeah. Were you out on the island?
I was out on the island.
Yeah.
And I said, I had the names Horace and Pete in my head.
That's all you had?
Yeah. And he said, and I knew it was a bar, and it was a family bar. It was starting to come together.
Yeah.
And I said, I think maybe you're my brother.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, I like that. Sounds good.
Yeah.
He said, I want to do this. I explained to him what I was at, and I was like, it's for my website. I'm going to do it very cheaply. I'm not going to tell anybody about it.
Yeah.
I said, if you get another project, you can just tell me you can't do it.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, I want to do it. And I said, if you want to have any ideas, you can tell me what they are. Let's just try to start doing this. So he said, okay. And then I thought, we're Horace and Pete. And once I saw him and me as brothers, the lineage of the bar came to me really fast. I was like, it's a bar called Horace and Pete's.
Yeah.
And it's always been in the family. I like that idea.
Yeah.
But if we're Horace and Pete, why is the bar called Horace and Well, because it was always called that. Generations of Horaces and Petes. I like that idea so much.
So that's all you got so far.
So I got the ideas, and I kind of know what I know what I want it to be. And then I saw a picture of Edie Falco in a magazine, just like one of those close-up of her whole face, taking up the whole page. Edie Falco has stopped. Nurse Jackie is over. Like Boardwalk Empire is over. HBO's #1 drama guy just stopped, and I got him now.
Yeah.
I've got him.
Yeah.
Edie Falco, Nurse Jackie, Showtime's #1 comedy, just ended.
Yeah.
She says in the interview, I love episodic television. It's my favorite thing. I don't like movies. I like TV.
Yeah.
And I'm not looking for new work. I'm going to see what happens. And they asked her, would you ever be in a comedy? And she said, no, because comedies don't run deep enough. And I looked at her face in the magazine and I said, you're going to be on my show. I said it out loud like a psycho. And so then I wrote her I started writing. There's always the big test is, does it right?
Yeah.
I've had a million ideas and I sit down and nothing comes. So I sat down and I wrote the first episode and I got this. Oh, the other idea was Joe.
Does it right?
Does it right? That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
So I thought about the other idea I had loosely years ago was Joe Pesci should be in a sitcom. That was another idea I had. Joe Pesci should have a sitcom.
And you met him, right?
Well, this is before I'd never met him.
Right.
And so I created the character for him being Uncle Pete.
Yeah.
And then I thought Jessica Lange, I sit next to her a lot at award shows, so I like Jessica Lange, so I mentioned her.
Just coincidentally?
Well, because we're both FX people. She was on Horror Hotel. So I told Steve Buscemi, what about Jessica Lange? He's like, yeah, I like her. She's great. Yeah. I thought about Adie Bryant because when I'm on SNL, she's my favorite cast member. They're all great, but she's great. So I just sit down and I put all these people in this bar. And I open the bar in my head.
Figure out who they are. You don't really know who they are yet.
I know that we're brothers. I know that she's our sister. I know he's our uncle. Okay. I know who everybody is. Yeah. And I just open the bar in the morning. Yeah. And I just start writing what happens. And I just have us saying just shit to each other. I talked to Steve about his character. Yeah. We had approached the idea that he's a guy who needs medication. Uh-huh. And that he's writing that line and it's painful for him. And without it, he's in a violent place. And so I start writing and the voices are very fucking real to me. And the place feels very real to me. And I just, it got really intense really quickly. Yeah. And Uncle Pete comes in and he's hilarious to me. And I'm just writing and writing. And then Sylvia walks in. It's like it was happening and I was like a stenographer just taking down notes, you know. And the first episode just was a very, I don't know how to describe it. It was like an eruption, you know? Right. And I finished it, and I was like, God damn, I really love this. And you grounded everybody. The first episode, the characters are deep. They're three-dimensional. Yeah. And they live in the place. That's right. It all happens that first episode. The other characters come in, but I think the sister, the daughter, the brother, the uncle, and you... Primarily. That's right. You're dug in. Kurt's there and Steve Wright's there, but they're Kurt and Stephen Wright.
Nick. Yeah, Nick. Mm-hmm. A little less than Nick.
That's right. And I thought, well, there's a lot of things happening in this episode that don't feel like good first episode of a TV show ideas. Like everybody starts really yelling at each other, and there's a very intimate.
This is why you're writing.
Yeah, this is a very intimate and private conversation,
right?
And a fight inside of a family.
Yeah,
and if you don't know these people, this family, it's asking a lot of people to watch them in this kind of conflict
immediately.
Yeah, I'm not saying a lot in the way of introduction about each person. Mm-hmm. And every time I thought of something like that, I thought that this is what happened in this show for me. This feels real, and it's okay. And I've got 10 episodes to explain everything. And if people need to be told and fed everything right away, they'll go away, and that's okay with me.
Right.
This feels right.
Right.
And so I just kept writing. And at the end of the first episode, I thought I didn't explain Horace at all. I really got Pete. Well, Horace didn't do anything. And I thought to myself, I have a feeling Horace is never going to do anything.
And this is your character,
my character. And I thought. When I thought of my character, I thought I did the thing of playing a divorced dad who's really showing up for his kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's your phrase, too, because when I had kids, you said to me, you're doing great, because I'd had kids for a while.
Right.
And I said, yeah, I'm a dad. And you said, yeah, but, well, not all of us thought you were going to show up for this. And I realized that showing up is like an active. For a man, showing up as a father is an act.
It's a choice.
Yeah. For a woman, it's a default. I mean, that's culturally, speaking. But so I thought I played that guy who showed up for the kids and stayed in divorce, and I want to play a guy who makes terrible choices and is a mess, somebody who's distant from his children, who blew it with his kids.
And also, the one thing I noticed throughout this whole thing, knowing you for as long as I have, is that, holy shit, this is unique. Louis listening a lot.
That's right. I also wanted to sit and listen to people.
Right.
I wanted to be somebody that people listen to.
And I don't mean that as an insult, but I mean, but it's not that's not your natural way.
It's not. That's right. You're right.
And you were challenging yourself.
Yeah. So I wrote the first one, and I thought, damn it, this is important and good, and this is definitely what I'm doing next.
But you didn't ask yourself for meaning. You didn't require that from what you were creating, because when you do something that's 10 episodes, it's how you explained it as being inspired by theater, that all makes sense, and your intentions all make sense.
Right.
But I assume that you wrote this not unlike other things. You let it happen.
That's the way
and did not interrogate it afterwards.
Well, afterwards, yeah, but not during.
Right.
Because I don't write things like this with intention to tell people an idea.
Right.
Or because I feel this, so I'm going to disguise it in a story.
Right.
Often when I write something, I look at it after and go, man, it taught me something, or I learned something from it. Or not taught, but it made me reflect.
Right. How many episodes did you write before you started the casting?
Well, so I had written Steve. Steve was in.
Mm-hmm.
I had started to try to get Joe Pesci to do it. I went to his house.
You did?
Yeah, I went to his house in New Jersey.
Now you're at a level now where people are like, you're a guy.
I can get folks on the phone. Yeah.
Yeah. So you go to Joe Pesci's house.
I went to Joe Pesci's house, and
that must have been great.
It was one of the greatest things ever. Yeah, it was really great. And by the time I wrote, I think I'd written 2.
And this is for Uncle Pete.
Uncle Pete.
Yeah.
I'd written 2.
Yeah.
And I started to know where the show was headed.
Yeah.
And I started to know everyone's backstory. I'd started to understand the family. I really knew them. And yeah, I didn't have this sense of I want to say this about people.
Right.
I did tell myself before I started writing, something I want to think about when I write this show is that there's a tension inside of everybody between the safety of being alone and wanting to be with other people. That when the closer you get to other people, you get a warmth of community.
Yeah.
But you get scared.
Yeah.
Because they can hurt you.
Right.
Or you can hurt them and let them down. Which is just sometimes worse.
And sometimes you don't have control over either of those things.
You never do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then but the safety of aloneness is despair. It's very sad.
Yeah.
So I always feel myself moving to the person, away from them, or towards myself, away from myself, towards myself. And that there's something interesting about that, and that a family is that, because a family you have no fucking choice.
Right.
And a bar and a family are the two opposite sides of that spectrum. You are fused to your family. But a bar is a way to be around other people where you're not with them. You don't owe them anything.
Yeah.
And I started going.
It's also an escape.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. From your own actual life. Yeah.
And also like it's a place where intelligence and things get compromised. You're serving people liquor. So
that's right.
So naturally there's a slippery slope of what's revealed and why people are there and all that stuff. And
that's right.
It's some of that you don't even have to speak to, and I don't necessarily think you did, but most of the people you covered.
Yeah, so I started thinking about stuff like that. I started going to bars to see what it's like during the day drinkers. Like at 1 PM, I'd go to a bar. I went to McSorley's in 7th Street, which was really interesting because that's been in the same family since the 1800s. And so I learned a little bit about that if I talked to them.
Right, and the convict actually, in the later episode, had worked at what was McSorley's.
Yeah, probably, right?
Right.
So most bars I found, they just have the music on and nobody can hear each other. This conversation
at night?
of people talking to each other during the day, they just have the fucking music on so that people can talk privately and no one can hear each other.
Right.
And that was kind of disappointing. I couldn't really eavesdrop on anybody because everybody was,
But you could feel it.
I could feel what it was like, and also sometimes somebody's at a bar and there's people with them that they're strangers.
Yeah.
And they'll go like, my dad raped me and now I work in finance, and people just kind of shrug, because it's anonymous. It's not Alcoholics Anonymous, it's Alcoholic Anonymous.
Yeah,
you know what
it's
I mean?
active, like it's bar behavior.
Yeah,
that happens.
Yeah. So I got interested in that idea, and then I thought of this thing of like, hey, if we make the show every week, we could throw it up really. If we do this multi-camera, we could, if we can learn how to make a good line cut that you can live with. We could throw the show up like the week we did it and talk about, this is about to be an election year. I had no idea what kind of an election year we were headed for.
Right.
When I was writing it, I didn't know what the fuck this was going to be.
Yeah.
Anyway, so all this was scrambling around in my head, and I wrote a second episode.
Yeah.
And now I'm just walking around thinking about Horace and Pete all the time. And every time I finish writing, I'm very emotionally wrought. Like it was affecting me.
Yeah.
And I just knew I had to do it. And then I went to the Emmys in September.
Yeah.
And Edie Falco had a seat open next to her. She was sitting there with the seat open next to her. So I just sat down next to Edie. And I said, hey, we've met just hello a couple of times.
Right.
I said, I'm writing a TV show. I want you to be in it. It's me and Steve Buscemi. And she said, sure. Like, please go away. Like, I was freaking her out a little, I think. I said, well, how can I get you to read it? And I said, I don't want to talk to your agent. I don't want to tell anybody it exists. It's a secret. And I'm not going to ask you to promote anything on the show. I just want you to do it. And she said, okay, well, she gave me her address where her mailbox is. Yeah. And the next, when I got home from so then I turned around and there's Jessica Lange standing there. Yeah. And I asked her the same thing, and Jessica was like, yeah, I'll look at it, sure. Yeah. Everybody was down. Yeah. And then when I got home, I gave, I made an envelope with the scripts, just like the old days, you know? Yeah. Put my phone number in it and wrote her a letter, dropped it at her mailbox place, said, this is for Edie. She said, just tell them it's for Edie. Yeah. Gave it to her, gave it to them. 2 days later, I got a text that said, hi, this is Edie. I'm in. When do we start? She's just like, I want to do it. Yeah. And I was like, really? She said, yes, absolutely. You sent her 2 scripts. 2 scripts. She was like, I'm doing this. And then I had lunch at Cafe Reggio with Jessica Lange. Yeah. And she said, well, I hope you do more with her, the character. Yeah. But I'll do it. Right. Because I'd only written a little bit for her. So now I've got Jessica Lange and Edie Falco
and Steve Buscemi.
Totally committed, although just verbally. Yeah. To do the show. And then Joe Pesci passed. And
what was it like hanging out with him?
Joe was, he's a very raw human being. Yeah. He gave me a cigarette. Yeah. And he goes, don't ever let anybody tell you these are bad for you. That's a fucking lie. Like, he really thinks it's a lie that cigarettes are bad for you. And I spent time with his family, and he takes care of them. He's a caretaker kind of a guy, but he's also fiercely protective of his privacy. Mm-hmm. He doesn't like being famous. Yeah. And he's a good guy. I mean, all I know is my time with him. I had a great time at his house. He's really hosted me nicely. Gave me a lot of advice, very paternal advice. Talked to me about the character at length of Uncle Pete. And has eventually passed and said, you can have everything I've said to you.
Did it help you?
Yes, there's a huge monologue in this show by Alan Alda, who plays the part I had written for him, that is, Joe said that to me about going down on a woman about oral sex. And I just couldn't believe it. When he said it, I was like, Joe, that's going to be in the show. And he goes, yeah, you can have it. And I sent him, after he said no, I still sent him a couple of scripts, and he would call me, and he'd go like, listen, you fuck. Like, he called me one day, you dummy, you're going to write Archie Bunker again? This fucking character has no depth. He's a fucking idiot, and it's been done. So are you going to listen to me? I'm like, yes, Joe, tell me what's wrong with Uncle Pete. And he'd tell me stuff, and I learned from him. It was great. Anyway.
So how many people do you go out to before you get Alda? How'd that work?
Okay, after Joe, I went to Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson.
Just because you felt like it?
I met him at Lorne Michaels' house.
Yeah.
And Lorne's been very nice to me over the years. And
Did he know about this project?
Yeah, he did. He begged me to get financing from somebody. But I said I can't. He's like, no one's going to congratulate you for paying for it. No one. And I was like, I know. I just don't want to have to talk anybody into the shit I'm doing.
Yeah.
And he's like, they'll just give you money. There's people who just give you money. I'm like, I don't want to do it. He's like, all right. But so I asked him for Jack Nicholson's phone number, and he said no, but I'll pass something on to him. So he gave him the scripts.
Yeah.
And Jack called me and said no. But
when
you
got that
I
call?
get personal no's now. That's where I'm at.
Right, but your phone rings.
My phone rings,
hello?
and this woman says, I'm looking for Louis C.K. I said, who's this? I'm calling for Jack Nicholson. If it's not you, I'm hanging up now, or something like crazy like that. And I was like, yes, it's me. So Jack comes on and he just says, I just wanted you to know the writing is terrific, but I'm not going to do it. And I was like, oh, well, can I convince you? He's like, you know what I did today? I went out to the tree in my yard and I sat under it and I read a book. And when I was done, I went back inside. And I was like, all right, it was nice talking to you. But anyway, we chatted for a while. But he said no. And then I thought of Christopher Walken.
Right.
And his agent is also Edie Falco's agent.
Yeah.
And Edie's agent had been sworn to secrecy. I'm really impressed, by the way, with all the agents of everybody. These are all Hollywood agents. None of them told anybody about the show.
Yeah.
So Edie's agent, Tony Howard, gave the script to Chris Walken, who said that he really liked it, but that he thought it was too easy for a guy like him to play this part.
Right.
He's done guys like this.
Yeah.
He said, tell Louis, why don't you get somebody who you would never expect to do this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I could see that. And she said, how about Alan Alda? Said Tony Howard. And I said, I don't think so. She said, why? And I said, I think Alan is the greatest.
Yeah.
But he's not right for this. And she said, well, meet him or let him read it with you. I go, I'm not going to do that to Alan Alda. I either hire Alan Alda or I leave him alone.
Yeah.
She said, Alan loves to work. I'll give him the script. Just let him read it.
So she's doing an agent's job.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he read it, and he wrote me an email, and he said, I really love the material. I'd love to talk to you about it. And if it's not right for me or I'm not right for it, I'd love to find that out as quickly as possible.
Right.
But let's talk.
Yeah.
So he came over to my house.
Yeah.
And he's a great guy.
Yeah.
And he's really serious and into his work. He's
Uh-huh.
a real artist.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to see Uncle Pete in him.
Yeah.
I was like, so how would you play it? He's like, I don't think about it that way. I don't intellectualize it. I just start doing it. Like, he wouldn't tip his hand.
Right.
And I was like, fuck. How's this guy Alan Alda gonna go? Cox is niggas and pissants. Like, what?
Yeah.
It's not him.
Alan Alda's not that
I'm
guy.
like, he's not that guy at all. It could be a huge mistake.
Yeah.
But then I'm looking at him. I'm like, Alan Alda's in my house.
Yeah.
I love every single thing he's done.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
And he wants this.
Yeah.
So I said, let's just do it. And he went, really? I said, yeah, I want you to do it. He said, are you sure? I said, yes.
Yeah.
And he left. And then Tony called me and said, Alan's concerned. He says you gave him the part, but he doesn't think you really want him to do it. I said, I want him to do it. And so, anyway, I'm talking too much, but I had all the big four.
Yeah.
Steve, Edie, Jessica Lange, and Alan. Had him cast.
But you hadn't done a read-through.
At this point, I had read four. I had killed Uncle Pete. I hate to give a spoiler, but I'll do this one just to tell the story.
Yeah.
I killed him in episode 4 so that Pesci would do it, because he said 10 episodes is too much.
Yeah.
And after Pesci walked away, I was like, 4 actually makes sense for him. This makes sense for the character. This character being such a looming figure and then dying is a huge, great thing to do to who's left.
Right. Nice void.
Yeah. Voids are fucking great for tragedy and drama.
Yeah.
So, and then Alan was going to Australia right after episode 4. We already had it scheduled at this point. So it worked out. Okay. So now I realize, and meanwhile, the FX deal that I've been putting together, where I'm about to sign it, it's final. They're being really nice to me. Yeah. Generous amount of money, really decent terms. Yeah. And I realize this is not a little webisode series. Yeah.
You've got 4 major actors.
4 huge actors. One of their Emmy Award-winning actresses, Jessica Lange. And that's not on FX. Yeah. And I'm about to sign this deal. And I'm in it. Yeah. And I just walked off of the air on FX.
And you got to tell them.
I was like, this is fucked up. I legally don't have to tell them, but there's no way.
You want to have that tension.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
And it was so, I mean, my stomach lining is just, I'm just shitting it out. And I'm like, I got to have this conversation. I had it many times in my head. Yeah. And I thought, God damn it. There's no good version of this. Yeah. You know, at one point you start trying to say, how can I say this? And then you go, this is no good way to say it. Right. Because I have to make the fucking show. Right. And I have to make it this way. Yeah. I have to make it. I'm not telling anybody. Right. This is all the only way to do it. So I called John Landgraf. And I said, listen, man. I said, I'm about to sign this deal with you and make it final. Yeah. I need you to know about this before I sign the deal. I didn't ask him, can I do this show? I said, I'm making this show. Yeah. But you need to know it before we sign the deal. Yeah. And I realize that this is really disruptive, but it's creatively what I believe in. Uh-huh. So I don't have a choice, and I want it. I want to do this. So whatever you do with the deal, I really want to make those shows for you on the network, but I'll understand whatever you want to do with the deal I'll understand. Yeah. I hope you decide to sign the deal. Yeah. But I can't have you sign it without knowing about this. Yeah. So he said, well, this is a lot you need to give me some time to digest this.
But you didn't tell him about the show.
Oh, no, he asked me what's the show about. Yeah. Because I think he wanted to know that I wasn't doing just Louis on my own network. Right. And I told him it's about a bar and 2 brothers that own a bar. And that was satisfying to him that it wasn't the same ground. Yeah. And he said, all right, let me think about this. And then he called me like a few days later and he said, walk me through deciding not to do Louis and then deciding to do this. Like, just take me through. And I told him basically the story I just told you. Yeah. And he said, I don't want to get in your way, and I like the work we do together. So it's fine. And I was very glad that I did that. Yeah. Okay, so then I'm writing, and I've got more cast together, and we get the studio. We start talking about what the bar looks like. Yeah. The more and further I went into it, and I'm telling John Landgraf now everything. Like I told him I'm killing Uncle Pete. I'm telling him all this stuff. And after a while, I see him chuckling and going like, listen, man, I'm so glad you're not doing this on my, like, it just was like, why would he want to be taken for this ride? Right. And eventually he said to me, not only am I supportive of this, I'm rooting for it. Yeah. I love, and he was just into that I was doing things this way. Yeah. So, okay. Annie Baker, I called her, I wrote her an email. Yeah. And said, I really love your play, and I thought maybe I want to help writing this. Because I want to write this with somebody. Yeah. And I also thought I'm doing this as a collaboration on stage. Maybe I could collaborate when I'm writing it. Right. So I wrote her and I said, do you maybe want to work on this thing with me? And she was in Iceland. She wrote back and said, hey, I'm a fan of your work, and let's meet. So we met. I gave her the first 3 scripts. No, the first 2. Yeah. And she loved them. And she said, this is really great. And I said, well, will you write on it with me? Like, be a writer on the show. And she said, I don't know if I can do that. And she went away a bit and thought about if she could write. And she came back and said, I don't think I can do that, like write for you on your show. Right. And I said, I'm glad because I don't think I could let you write on my show. I don't think anybody else could write it. Yeah. I said, can you just come to my house sometimes and sit with me? I have the way that I use help as a writer, have somebody sit on my couch and just be there to talk to.
Who do you use? Like Vernon?
Vernon Chapman. Stephen Wright did it on my episode, on my series Louis. Yeah. Pamela has done that for me, Pamela Adlon. Yeah. on this thing, I didn't have anybody. Vernon I had. Vernon was helping me that way. But so Annie's great contribution to the show was that after 2 episodes, I decided I want to do an episode where 2 people talk for the whole episode.
Yeah.
And you never walk away.
And at this point, most of them are around 30 to 40 minute long.
The first one was 65 minutes. The second one was 45.
Right.
So I wanted to do one where it's 2 people talking. And my first idea was it was 2 people in the bar that aren't connected to the characters. Just like 2 patrons of the bar talk for 30 minutes, episode 3.
Right.
And Annie and I talked about it. And she said, I think it needs to be people on the show. But maybe you introduce a new character.
Yeah.
And so I started thinking of that. And then I thought of this woman who I met at the Emmys also. Yeah. Who's a brilliant actress. I don't want to say her name. And I thought she could maybe do it. And she likes me. So and I thought, what if I think of something for her? So I came up with this idea, this area. And I started telling Annie Baker this idea. The ex-wife. The ex-wife. Yeah. And this thing about a confession and people sharing culpability and, you know. Yeah. And we both were like, this is really fucking exciting. And it was through dialogue with Annie of talking about it and describing to her the area I wanted to go into and her saying, yes, you got to do that. You got to do that. And Annie said very early on, I feel like this starts with a shot of this woman who's a new character and you don't know who she is. Yeah. And you don't know who she's talking to. And you also like don't, even though you know the actress, it takes a minute to identify her. Oh, definitely. Because she's, you know, dressed down. Well, that's an interesting thing because the original actress is somebody you would have gone, boom, you would have known who that is. Right. It literally through the entire episode, which was really one of the best performances ever anywhere, in my recollection. I think that's true. I do, too. And I'm like, is that Laurie Metcalf? Is it her? I don't even know if it's her. Who is that? Is it a New York actress? Like, I could not identify her. That's right. For almost the whole thing until I saw the credits. That's right. And like when you watch that thing, I know that I see that other people have responded in similar ways than I have. You're like, what the fuck? Mm-hmm. Like you know you can't even explain that performance where it came from, but you know the detail that you gave her to work with. Mm-hmm. was insanely nuanced. Well, the place I had gotten to with this, like, so what Annie and I talked about was the idea of an a divorced couple that have a lot of distance. Yeah. Their kids are growing up. They have no reason to talk anymore. Right. And that one of them I always had this idea in my head that Horace did something terrible to break up the family. Yeah. Just awful. Right. And that she's the victim of that. Yeah. So she is now in her later life doing something terrible in her new family. And also significantly older than you. So the backstory of you unfolds. Which came because the actress who I wrote it for was older than me. Yeah. And I thought, well, that's interesting to me. That Horace is younger than his wife. And that's not a reason, but it's part of what went into his not handling the marriage and being a father. Right. He was a young father. Right. And so that idea, and I was like, when I started setting that up, I thought she comes to him to ask him how to handle doing a terrible thing because he did one to her. I thought, that's fucking huge. And that's where Annie and I were at. And I thought, I know where this is going generally. Now I'm just going to go write it. Send her away. It's the last time I saw Annie on the project because until we shot the thing months later because she had something going on in her life, I couldn't get her again after that. So I sat down and she had given me this thought of the woman's face and you don't know who she's talking to. And I thought, okay, let's let her talk for a while. And so I started telling the story. And this is what it was like to write this show. I sat down and I started telling the story through her voice of where they were at, this house. And what it was like and why they went there. It comes out of nowhere. You don't know why she's telling the story. You don't know anything. You don't know a single thing. If you're watching in order, you're just like, what's happening? The power of this show to me and the way I wanted to do it, and especially once I started writing it, how vital it was that it be a secret was because of the episodes like this where it was like, you won't know why you're looking at this person. You won't know how long you're likely to look at them. You don't know who they're talking to. You don't know how many episodes this show is. You don't know what this show is. It's only 2 episodes deep into it. You don't know why you're watching it. I knew that people would call, like we had to, when I first put the show in the air, huge amounts of press called my publicist, who honestly said, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, because I didn't tell him it existed. I wanted him to be credibly ignorant. He knew no idea. Okay, so
right. You mean when you dropped it?
Yeah, when I first dropped it. Right. So if you're a person watching this, you're just like, you saw one and you're like, I don't know what.
Did you send him a nice bottle of wine or something?
He's great. He handled it very well.
Okay.
And then the second episode, you go, okay, I guess there's a rhythm.
Yeah, I guess it's episodic.
The first one's like its own thing.
Yeah.
The first one is like its own play.
Yeah.
And then the second one is like, I guess we're going to watch these people for a while.
Yeah.
It's kind of a holding pattern episode.
Yeah.
Then the third one, you go, who the fuck is this? She's been talking for 10 minutes, and I don't know who she's talking to, and I'm getting a boner from her story, and she looks really upset and nervous. I don't know why. All these things. The stirring up questions in somebody's head, exciting all their fucking brain with wonder and confusion. These are great feelings to feel from a TV show.
Yeah.
They don't exist because they want to land you safely in every single moment.
Right,
you know?
right.
So this was a great opportunity for that. So she's talking. I'm writing it, and I'm on pins and needles because I'm watching the scene as I'm writing it.
Not for Lori.
No, not for Lori. For somebody else. But I'm in my head thinking about this thing that she's laying there, and that he drives up. And that she spreads her legs open, and that was an act. She didn't spread them for him. She spread them for her own luxury of aloneness. And that here he comes, and now what do I close them? Here comes this man, this old man, and I'm letting him look. And do I open my eyes? And every single little detail of that was freaking me out as I wrote.
The brush on the wall, dude.
What's that?
The paintbrush.
Yeah, the paint. I mean,
that was like
I lived all these moments as I was writing them. The paintbrush, and she's like trying to touch herself, and I'm like, and I mean, I was getting hard while I was writing it, and then I finally get to where Horace goes, why are you telling me this? And then the tension breaks, and she goes, well, you know, I never thought about what you went through during that time. And Horace is like, what the fuck? This is a funny way to bring this shit up. We never talked about it. We just broke up, you know?
Yeah.
And then I thought, go to the bathroom, Horace. Just go to the bathroom. Everybody calm down for a minute. And that's where I started putting intermissions in the show. So
right.
Intermission.
Yeah.
Come back. All right. So he starts telling her the real
truth. Right, and you're filling in all this backstory
about Horace, who you've been watching.
Right, and that's how you fill it out, by listening,
right.
and then by addressing it. But even all of your stuff is relatively minimal in terms of your vocal engagement.
Yeah, I don't say very much at all.
Right, but you cry, you react, you listen. You know, and in the episode where you play your own father, that is a completely different set of challenges as an actor.
Yeah.
And also, like, what I always wonder about something this expansive is, are you considering the psychology of these characters? Like, when you look at Horace as an adult, do you from the get-go, do you believe he had an abusive childhood, or is that something you discover?
Well, I think that there was an abuser, was the head of the household.
Right.
And that was the cycle of the family. And, I mean, I grew up with a dad who hit everybody. He just hit everybody.
Yeah.
And that's what a family was like when I was growing up. And the mother hit just out of desperation.
Right.
And the kids had strange relationships of trying to sort of comfort each other and stay away from each other and stuff like that. So I knew that was a backdrop. I knew that that's part of what drove these kids apart. And that's part of what drove Horace and Pete together.
But even the detail of the Pete character's childhood with the glasses and the filling of the glasses.
Yeah.
Where the fuck did that come from?
Okay, so
like that you're establishing that he had mental problems early on that had not.
It was a big deal to me that Pete had a mental that he had a disorder.
Yeah.
And I gave that a lot of thought. I talked to a guy who works in a doctor of abnormal psychology, to ask to just run some of this shit by him.
Yeah.
And he checked most of it. He said the stuff that you have, there's some that's accurate, and the stuff that's inaccurate is in the right ballpark and borrowing from other types of, you know what I mean? Like you said, it all makes sense.
Right.
So Pete, to me, that thing of Pete having this madness that he fights against, and that his nature is that he's just a good guy.
Yeah.
He's a caring guy. He's courageous.
Yeah.
he's vain, you know. When he says to his date, I know the left side of my face is handsome. You know, he's got a good heart and strong confidence as a person, but he keeps getting shattered by this fucking madness inside of him. And that's a really hard, terrible thing. It's just a bad toss of the dice. Yeah. And I don't think most people end up beating it in the end. Right. And I kind of knew right away when I was writing this, I think this shit's going to take Pete. I don't think Pete's going to make it. On some level, he's not going to make it. Yeah. And that was really hard because I really got I got so involved in these things. Every time I wrote an episode, I tried not to make phone calls or talk to anybody because I would start talking like the characters and stuff like that. But anyway, but about the glasses. So when I wrote the last 2 episodes, I wrote the first 8. I just wrote them on a schedule, one after the other, because it was just coming out of me. Then I got to episodes 9 and 10, and I knew what they were going to be. I knew what was going to happen in the end. And when I wrote episode 8, where Pete gets some bad news, I sent it. I gave the cast the scripts as soon as I wrote them,
because they had to shoot next week.
No, this is before. I wrote them all ahead of time.
Oh, okay.
So this is like in October.
And now knowing you and knowing the stuff that you've taken chances on previous and some of it not being made, how impulsive was it? How much editing was there when you did a draft?
Well, when I would write, I don't do a lot of rewriting in my life at all. But I thought I gave a lot of forethought. I thought very carefully about these things before I wrote them. Yeah. I worked harder on these scripts than I've worked on anything in my life. Yeah. I wrote the first 8. And then I sat down and thought out 9 and 10. Yeah. And when I wrote 8 and Pete gets this bad news, I gave it to Buscemi, who wrote me, and he said, or I think he called me, and he said, look, I don't have high hopes for Pete after reading this. And he said, it doesn't seem like he's got much of a chance in life. And after we killed Uncle Pete, anything could happen. Right. And I just want you to know that that's okay with me. Because at this point, I thought, we're on season 1. This is season 1.
And this is also the guy that made Trees Lounge.
That's right.
This is his wheelhouse.
This is a guy who's done, he's got an incredible body of work. Yeah. So he said that, and I thought, I don't know. Because it was hard to think of, I don't want to take this part away from Steve. I don't want to take his character into this terrible place. Because I'm hiring all these people. They're all taking a chance on me. Edie and Steve and Jessica and Alan they're giving me the first quarter of their year, which is a lot from actors of that caliber. And I thought, I want to do this show for years. That's what I originally thought. But every time I took a big dramatic or tragic turn in the show, I thought the only thing that keeps you from doing that in a sitcom or any series is that you need to stay within the margins on a series so that the show stays the same so it can stay on the air. Right. The decision to not make big moves on a television show is an economic decision to make more product. But as a writer, you just want to be able to say, I don't give a fuck what happens to anybody as long as it's important, as long as it works in the writing. Yeah. So I thought about 9 and 10. And I was like, oh fuck, I know how this ends. I know what happens at the end. Yeah. I don't want to do it. I don't want this to end like that. I don't want it to, but I have a feeling it's gonna happen. So I stopped writing. At 8, I said, I'm not going to write 9 and 10. Yeah. I want to start making the show and see if I can come up with a better 9 and 10 that gives the show a longer life and gives the characters a better outcome. So I started making the show, and once in a while I'd go back to 9 and 10, and it just kept.
So you're shooting week to week. You're knocking them out in a week.
So I've been having people come to my house. The whole cast, they come to my house and they read. Yeah. The big 4. Yeah. And then people like Mark Normand, Lisa Traeger, who's just a comic who started at the Cellar recently. Yeah. I liked them, so I had them come to read the parts at the bar. Lisa, I didn't know if I was going to put on the show. I was like, could you come and read one line but read a bunch of other characters? Lisa Traeger. She's a comic. I like her. Right. Michelle Wolf, really funny, strong comic, funny voice. Come on and read this part, and Tom Noonan, who I'd used in my other show.
Great actor.
Fucking great actor. Got him involved. Stephen Wright, Kurt Metzger. So I started, but I didn't tell them what they're doing. I said, just come to my house on Monday.
And then out of nowhere, we get Burt Young.
Yeah, exactly. Burt Young. So they all come and they sit down at my table and we all read. And over the whole fall, I read this episodes again and again, read them as much as I could. I had this thing in my head from All That Jazz, the movie,
sure.
where he's running a dance again and again.
Yeah.
And he's like bent over at the waist with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. He watches them pour their hearts out.
Yeah.
And then he just goes, do it again. Do it again. And I thought, I got to be that good on this. And I did it to myself on the scripts. I'd read through them, do changes, cut little things, make it better, make it better, make it better. I said, this has to be fucking great. So I worked like that. And then now it's time, when it gets to be January, we've worked really hard. We haven't made anything. We haven't made a single fucking thing.
Yeah.
And I try to figure out this workflow. How do we make this show? How do we actually do this?
Yeah.
How do we deliver the show on a weekly basis?
Right.
Obviously, I'd left spots, like a lot of dialogue at the bar was like TBA because I wanted to see what happened in the news. And we would run that. Like Tuesday, I figured we'd figure out what we're going to talk about in terms of current events.
Right.
So that's generally what I did. So
that would run through Kurt and...
That's right.
Yeah.
So we've got 4 cameras and a control room. And I'm the director, and I'm used to directing myself, but I need a live switch. I need the cameras to be switching from one to the other in a way that we're going to be able to use on the air.
Yeah.
So we start rehearsing it, and every time I'm looking over at the cameras. Every time somebody talks, all the cameras come over to that person.
Right.
And then another person talks, and they all go over there.
Yeah.
It was fucking madness. And we're not Saturday Night Live people. I mean, they know what they're doing. We don't know how to do it. So I sat in the control room the first week, and I sent the cast home and replaced them all with stand-ins and ran the scenes with stand-ins.
Yeah.
And there was these highlighters sitting on. I'm sharing this because I want to open source the show because anybody who wants to do this should be able to do it.
Right.
There were these highlighters on the counter of the control room, all colors. So I had 4 highlighters, one for each camera. And what I did was I colored the dialogue on the script with the color of the camera that should be covering that dialogue.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I walked through the show, and every time that a camera's position switches, like next to the dialogue, I wrote, a single on Edie. So that's what camera 1's assignment is.
Yeah.
And then the next time you see camera 1, if that assignment is changed, you go 3-shot Edie,
right.
Steve,
Right. You created a system.
That's right. And I invented one. And I had so many times during making this show where I thought, it can't be done. The first week, I was like, we can't do this.
Yeah.
No one can make a show this fast of this breadth. We can't do it. But we figured it out. And after the first one, we realized we all know how to do this now.
Right.
So
working with real pros.
Yeah. Oh, and I mean, the actors fucking forget.
And when did you, like, whatever skeptical feelings you had about Alan?
Oh, yeah. So Alan, the first time we read the first 2 scripts, I took a bunch of fucks out.
Yeah.
Because I thought he's not going to be able to say these things.
Because Alan Alda.
Yeah, Alan Alda. And he came with a whole other guy, and he read it, and I was like, I had pins and needles in my body as he read it. And then we read episode 2, which I hadn't edited, and he said fuck and cocksucker and all this stuff, and I was like, this guy's incredible. This guy's like, and he was wearing these big glasses, and I was like, God, I hate this guy so much. I hate him because we were reading a lot of the scenes were me and him, and he's being mean to me, and I'm like, fuck, I hate Uncle Pete. And I couldn't believe it. And I said to Alan one day, I'm not going to talk to you about this character or anything. Just do what you know what you're doing. So, let's just enjoy ourselves. And that's the way it went. I never had to talk to him about it. I had very few. You always want to be able to help a little. And direction is a good beacon for people.
Right.
So I was able to tell Alan sometimes, like, here's a way to go with it. And he would always be grateful for that.
Right.
But he invented that fucking character. It's not what I had in my head. It was something 1 billion times better.
Yeah.
And he just, every time he showed up, it was better and better. And the week of the show, when he walks in, and, the whole thing I had with music and stuff was about turn on the jukebox in the beginning, let the show feel like, you're watching the show, right? You don't know what it is. You just got an email from me. This is the show.
Right.
You put it on.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck this is. These 2 guys are dancing. They look like idiots.
Yeah.
Stephen Wright walks in, puts his own napkin down and gets a drink. It's just dead. They're sitting there drinking coffee. Nothing's going on. What is this shit? And then somebody walks in and puts music on the jukebox. And now it's getting lively. Okay, the place is filling up. Okay, so this is going to be a show about a bar, and it's going to always have music coming out of that jukebox. It's going to be live.
Yeah.
They're talking about football.
Right.
And then this guy walks in and unplugs the jukebox, and it plays dies. It just it dies, and then it's dead till he dies. I mean, it's dead like that. And for most of the series, it's dead.
Yeah.
So that's who Alan was. He was this joy killer, you know? And at the same time, I knew there was a time where he really made the bar sing. He made it great, you know? He tells the baseball story about Horace. And it's like this thing. He used to be able to tell stories like nothing and make people laugh. Story. It's terrible. It's so vicious.
But, you know, you were able to service a lot of the things that, you know, you struggle with and are important to you. Cultural conversations about race, about gender, about sexuality, about politics, you know, about the bleakness of life, about how life changes and how people change. I mean, all that stuff is there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, in looking at the span of it, you know, you were able to use Amy Sedaris in almost an angelic way.
She was an angel.
Right.
And I didn't know that. I didn't know she was going to be that.
Oh, you didn't?
No, but, and I feel like I didn't service the question you asked me about the glasses, because I was taking too long to get there.
It was just a detail.
But okay, so when I was ready to, I realized I have to write 9 and 10 now because there's no escape from 9 and 10. They are what they are. I realized that 10 didn't have a lot of content. It wasn't actually very much. I just knew what happens at the end. And then I thought, what if we go back to 1976 in Horace and Pete's? 2016, 1916 when the bar was open, and now let's go to 1976, somewhere in the middle.
Bicentennial quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought, what if we go to the day they left? What if we go to the day that Horace and Sylvia were taken away and Pete was left behind? Which is sort of what informs the whole story.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, and then it's...
You're playing your father, Edie, your sister's playing your mother.
She's playing my mother, and Pete's going to play Uncle Pete as a young man.
Great job on that, he did.
He was amazing. So, and then I thought, then when you get a whole new set of bar patrons, and this time it's fuller and it's more alive. Like in 76, it was fun. It's not fun anymore.
Right.
That's what I wanted to
Active
sort of
conversation, not threatening, not foreboding, not malignant.
Immediately I knew George Wallace.
Yeah.
And then I thought about Colin.
Yeah, Colin was great.
And I met with Colin, and he told me about 2 hours of stories of New York in 1976 when he lived in Brooklyn at that time. It was great because he said to me, your bar was on Court Street. Yeah. Like he put my bar, he said it was on Court Street near the municipal buildings downtown. And he told me all about having a girlfriend in Trump Village in 1976. And so I extracted all this shit from Colin. Credit to him because he told me great stories like the one he tells about gang members chasing each other. And I wrote his character. And then I thought about David Blaine, who'd I run into once in a while. The guy doing a magic trick and freaking out Uncle Pete.
Right.
And then I thought there should be also an old guy like we had. And then I thought about Burt Young. And I asked my agent, just call Burt Young's agent and tell him we have this. You just sit in a stool and you'll say some shit. I don't want to send him a script. And he said yes. Burt Young, you know, his guy's name is Horace, and my guy's name is Horace. So he memorized the script and he thought all my lines were his lines. Oh, which was fine. Yeah, because sometimes we both say something at the same time, which is funny. Yeah, and also he was better than there's a bunch of my lines. Most of the things that he says, old Horace, were my lines. I just let him have them. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so the abuse. Yeah. And the glasses. Yeah. So I'm playing this guy who abuses everybody in his family. Yeah. And I've never done that. Yeah. And I don't know how someone does it. Yeah. And every time I would sit alone, I'd make sure no one was looking, and I'd read the lines out loud, and I couldn't do it. Hurt. Well, I thought I'm not this guy. It was just I couldn't authentically go like, what are you doing? Right. Like, what am I going to try to sound like I'm from Brooklyn? Right. What are you doing? Well, you got a little Boston in there, though. Yeah, a little bit. And so then I thought I might have to replace me. Yeah. And that's weird if I'm the only one not playing the older guy. Right. So then Edie comes to the set one day and we just look at it. She goes, can I ask you about the 76 stuff? And I said, yeah. She was great at talking about the material. So I said, let's read it out loud. So now I'm looking at Edie, who I've been working now with for 8 weeks, who I've gotten a tremendous amount of respect and affection for, who I really love and I believe is my sister from all the time of playing the parts. Mm-hmm. And now I look at her, she's my wife. It's easy to feel that way. Yeah. I love her. I trust her. Right. And it's easy to be mean to her. Right. I just go, what are you doing? You know, you fucking liar. Yeah. It was easy. Yeah. Because I trusted her. And I realized that's what abusive people do. Yeah. They just go, she loves me. She loves me. Fuck her. fucking whore.
Yeah.
It was so easy. It was horrible. Grabbing her. But I remember when we were rehearsing and I was dragging her by the back of the hair through the bar, I was saying to everybody, I'm dragging a national treasure by the back of her head. You know, I felt terrible. But in filming it, it was easy to do.
It's brutal.
Yes, it is. So then this kid, I thought, Pete's going crazy. He's just going crazy at 13.
He has no control over it. Mental problem.
That's right. He gets a thing in his head. He can't get rid of it. So I thought of these two details. One is that he ripped the faces out of some pictures and then hid them. And the other is that he gets told by somebody he's got to fill every glass with water in the house before the sun comes up.
That was just a device you came up with.
That's all. And then there was this thing, the way the kid did it, of like, you know.
He's very good. Yeah.
And he's laying the glasses out in rows.
Yeah.
That kid was so goddamn good.
Yeah.
I walk up to him and all I said to him was, when I take my glasses off, you know you're going to get hit.
Yeah.
Because we did versions where I did a stage slap.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
So I take off my glasses and the way he stops is horrible.
And then you cut away and just hear no.
Yeah, you just hear slapping and no.
Yeah.
So, okay. Anyway, when we did that and we did the last episode, I got really wrecked by it. You know, it was really hard.
Well, you could see you getting wrecked throughout it.
Yeah.
That, you know, it started
really hard
to chip away at you.
That's right.
So, like, for me, you know, in my experience of it, you know, and it's got nothing to do with who me and you are, but, like, you know, as seeing it as a piece, it seems like you did some, like a version of the great American tragedy. That you know, you created this masterpiece of what feels like theater. And then you know, sort of redefine the parameters of television. But I think that does a disservice to what you did in a way. That you shot it, you know, so beautifully and so specifically that the experience is theater. Like, you know, that the space and, you know, you let things sit. And this is not stuff that I know for you is easy. It's not easy for you to listen. It's not easy for you to cry. It's not easy for you to be abusive. And like, so the challenges for yourself were huge.
Well, they were, and the listening is the big one, because I didn't make myself cry in any of these scenes. It's not written when she's telling Horace about her son, about his son, who doesn't speak to him. Yeah, it's not written that he cries. There's no reaction written. It's just her lines. And when she said them, I just bawled. I couldn't control it. Yeah. And on every take, we do 3 takes, but I really lost it when she's telling me about my son and how he's happy.
And wait, what about Laurie Metcalf? Were you just astounded?
So the woman who I wrote it for couldn't do it. Yeah. And I started thinking of people, and Laurie Metcalf's name kept coming up. And I knew that she was a great actress. Yeah. And I wasn't sure it was her. And then I saw a piece from her show called Getting On. Yeah. And I saw her do this. I don't remember what the scene was about, but it was just great. Yeah. And I was like, why didn't I? She's perfect. There's nobody else that can do it. And then I got panicked because I thought, now I'm probably not going to get her. Because now that I know it's her, I'm not going to be able to get her. Yeah. This is way back in October before we started shooting. And so, I don't remember exactly when, but so somebody got her the script. I emailed her. I tried to get it to everybody personally because I didn't want anybody to fucking know about the show. So I wrote her and said, please don't tell anybody about this. Please read it and please do it. Yeah. We can do it on a Monday. She was in a play. Yeah. So she wrote me back and said, I'm already memorizing it. Mm. And I said, great. I'm so excited. And I never spoke to her again. Never met her. She just took the part. Yeah. And then that was it for that. Then episode 3, because episode 3 was just me and her talking. So there was nothing to do. Yeah. There was no logistics to it.
So, but you had no experience previous to the scene of what she was going to do with it.
No idea. No idea.
So you were just sitting there going, what?
Yeah. So episode 1, episode 2, and putting the show out, absorbing the reaction from the show, all of the freakish life of all of that. Yeah. Now it's time for episode 3. And I'm like, fuck. I got to do episode 3 now. That's Laurie. That's right. Laurie's doing it. Fuck. I hope this is good. I never talked to her. Yeah. Probably should have brought her in a few times. So she came the Friday before we shot it. We shot it on Monday. She came in on the Friday before, and she sat down and she read it with me. And I thought, Jesus, motherfucking Christ. Yeah. This is really huge. Yeah. This is a huge thing. and I didn't know it because I hadn't looked at the script.
Yeah.
I don't know the lines.
Right.
And she needs me to just catch and throw and toss back.
Yeah.
That's all I have to do, and I'm not ready to do it.
Yeah.
And God damn it, I didn't know what this was. I forgot about it.
Yeah.
And when she read it, I was like, she's vulnerable. She's ashamed. She's turned on. She's scared. God damn it. And I thought, this is the biggest thing I ever did is just this one stupid dialogue. This is the most important thing I'll ever do.
Right.
And we're doing it on Monday. And I'm really tired.
Yeah.
And so over the weekend, I got as many people as I could get to come over and read with me. I don't prepare.
Yeah.
People came over and read it with me. I had to know it perfectly. I read it again and
to be there for her.
Just for her.
Yeah.
I got nothing I have to do but not fuck her up. Because she needs to do this all of a piece.
Yeah.
And the hardest, talk about listening.
Yeah.
10 minutes of looking at an actor telling you a story where you're not on camera, where you're just trying not to derail them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I took all weekend, worked on it. And then on Monday, it was like a closed set, like when you do a sex scene.
Yeah.
That's what I told the crew.
Yeah.
No one unnecessary on set. Quiet. And I set up the shots and the sort of game of how to shoot it. And then she came in and then we sat down and it was dead quiet in that fucking place. Oh, Alan Alda coming in at the end. We had shot that already because he had left town.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we sat down and did it the first take. I figured we'll get a few takes in. First take, we kind of had it. I mean, she kind of nailed it on take one. Yeah. And I was like, God damn it, Lori. Okay, let's do one more. Second one is far better. And that's all we ever did of the first half of this episode is two takes. And then we did another one of the second half, the dialogue between me and her. And when she told me about my son being a good man and making good choices, I just felt so many things, and I couldn't hold it in. And that's when this show started to shift for me, because I was really getting involved emotionally as an actor without trying. I didn't have to go and think about sad things. I just opened up to these people.
Right. And that speaks a lot to, your experience with, your mother. And being there for your mother.
That's right.
And having two fucking sisters.
Three. Yeah.
Like the amount of emotional space and the sort of the gift of these characters to the women in this show is sort of mind-blowing. Like, it's a beautiful thing, but I think that comes a lot from stuff that you really haven't reckoned with publicly.
No, it's true.
Your relationship with women is complicated, and it goes back to when you were a nothing.
That's right.
A child.
That's right. It does, and I think that I was able to dig deep that way because it was about family.
Right.
And here I have this daughter on the show who, I thought about my daughters when I did Louis, but in this case, I thought about my sisters.
Right.
Because my family, my dad we don't have a relationship with him. I don't have one with him at all.
Yeah.
And so that's who Horace's son is really me.
Yeah.
I'm playing my dad a little bit,
right.
And then, but I have one sister who stays in touch with him.
Yeah.
And I hope I'm not divulging anything private, but I asked her once because she has a hard time with him.
Yeah.
But she stays in contact.
Uh-huh.
And I asked her once, why do you do that? Yeah. Why do you put yourself through it? Because I don't. She said, well, he's part of me. Your parents are part of you. And I feel like if I can accept him, not forgive or even like,
right,
but if I can accept him and be open to him in my life, that means I can accept and be open to parts of myself that I have a hard time with. And I thought, God damn it, that's such a strong choice. That's a brilliant thing to be able to do. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Willfully admit I can't do it.
Yeah.
I'd rather just avoid and shut down.
Right.
So that's who Adie is. She's really my older sister.
Right.
And that she just looked at, I'm going to tell you how I feel. If you want to be around me, you're going to have to listen to what I have to say.
Right.
But so that's who she was.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it was very intense. And after 3, we killed Uncle Pete, and him telling Pete about eating pussy as his last words was all Joe Pesci's thing, but he turned it into this thing. Joe Pesci started by telling me you don't eat pussy because it makes you into a schmuck, and even women that do it, he doesn't like them.
Yeah.
But then he says, but that's because love is you face each other and you come at the same time, and nothing is and nothing else is worth it.
Yeah.
Hold out for real love.
Yeah.
Joe Pesci said that to me.
Yeah.
And so for Uncle Pete to say that to him, don't ever do that, son. Don't ever eat a pussy. And then he shoots himself. And I'm sorry for the spoiler for whoever's listening.
But that's the only thing you really spoiled.
No, it's the one thing. But
the thing about it is like people's expectations of you and giving you the leeway to have this experience and put it out there is that the comedy of it, it services the tragedy.
Yeah,
it does not save it.
That's very well put.
And Kurt's great, Steven's great, Nick is great, but but even Kurt, who is probably the most comedic character.
He's also a lonely guy in the show too, though,
right?
I think.
No, I know, and he's very Kurt. Like I know Kurt.
Yeah.
But his energy, his exuberance, his joyful cynicism is about the funniest it gets.
That's it. That's really it. Yeah. That's it.
And it's dark.
It is.
But there's also one beat that you have, after the first encounter with the African American woman who you don't know, what she is.
Yeah.
When she leaves and you have that moment before you walk in the bedroom, I don't want to give it away because it's so clearly a comic moment.
Right. That's right.
After
she leaves?
Right. And Edie Falco comes in.
Yeah. So she, here's the thing with that one was a good case of where I felt the story was being told to me rather than me telling it.
Yeah.
Because the point of that to me was Horace hooking up with somebody. One night stand. And the one night stands in life that are very mutually
good.
Yeah, and also mutually negotiated. Yeah, everybody's cool with what's going on.
Right.
And that when she wakes up the next morning and goes and she's just like, I didn't mean to stay over. And Horace says, have some eggs. And she says, and then I'm leaving. And Horace says, yeah, please do. And then they're able to sit together because they both know no one's going to get snarled here.
Then you get into that conversation that you have, which I've never seen it played that way.
Well, because I thought what's interesting, once I got them sitting down, I didn't know what I was going to have them talk about, but I thought, here's an interesting thing. Two people who have been intimate, which means they can tell each other something.
Yeah.
But they have negotiated we are never going to see each other again.
Yeah.
Which means they can tell each other things without fear.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Right.
And I thought, Horace is a guy who, if you ask him 3 questions about his life, you find out something terrible.
Yeah.
That's a fucked up way to go through life.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, you got, just questions that are nobody, and they're eating eggs. They don't really even want to talk.
Yeah.
You got, are you married? No, divorced. You have kids? Yep. 2. Yep. Really? How old are they? And then it all comes out.
Yeah.
You can't even answer that question for Horace without this horrible truth coming out.
Yeah.
And so he tells her, and to me, that's what the scene was about. It was about that. And then I started to figure, okay, well, then we'll start landing the scene by talking about sex and just that she enjoyed it, he enjoyed it. You have a nice dick. Thank you. You have a nice pussy. Thanks. It's right. I had to put in where my dick used to be. I had to make that joke.
Yeah.
It's just a joke.
Yeah.
And then I went, huh. As Horace in my head, I was like, yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
And then the conversation took off from that. I didn't know the scene was going to be about that. I didn't intend to write that scene. I really didn't. And then once I started having that conversation with myself in my head, about halfway through, I talked to Vernon about it. And he said, well, wait a minute, though. If someone is transgender, they have to tell their partners. And I was like, really? They do? And then I thought, that's so interesting that he thinks that.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. So I had that out in the conversation.
Right.
But I got to give Vernon credit because when we shot that scene, it was intense.
Yeah.
And the last take we did, I thought we were done.
Yeah.
I was like, we did it. And then Karen Pittman, who played the woman, said, I'd love one more. And I said, you don't need one more. She said, I don't think I have it at all. And I said to her, I don't need you to feel satisfied as an actor.
Yeah.
You gave it to me. She said, just let me do one more. I said, all right. So we did it. That's the one we used the last one that she wanted.
Yeah.
And it's far better than the one previous. So she gets credit for that. But right before we did it, there's something I've started to do in directing when I'm in the thing.
Yeah.
If you're doing a last take, it feels like a last take. Do something that the person didn't expect. Like walk towards them when you haven't for 5 takes, or go walk over and like put your hand on their shoulder. Something that makes them do something really honest.
Yeah.
But anyway, he got in my ear and said, "You should say this one thing," and he fed me that line right at the
Which one?
Right before the one you're talking about. The thing I say. Anyway.
Yeah, because it was like in the way you structured this show. Even if something's funny, you're not writing jokes. There's no, it's not.
No, there's none. It's all just mechanics of the story, and then it's these feelings. And I kept getting blindsided by feelings, like in that scene. So Edie wasn't supposed to be in that scene.
Yeah,
but there was this thing where she's got cancer. Yeah, and there's a timeline to her cancer.
Right. And
I'd been talking to Edie about that kind of stuff, and so I said to her,
is that the scene where she tells you she has cancer?
It's the scene where she tells me she's healthy, that she got a good card of
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So I said to her the day before, hey, you know what? You're not supposed to be here tomorrow for the Karen Pittman scene, but come anyway. And come in at the end and tell me that you're cured.
Yeah.
And I just figured it's a story point.
Yeah.
And I'll go, hey, terrific.
Yeah.
So she said, okay, how do you want me to say it? I'm like, just however you would say that.
Yeah.
That you got good news.
Yeah.
And she goes, all right. So I forgot it. I forgot I told her to.
Yeah.
I honestly forgot.
Yeah.
Until we're shooting the first. I think we didn't do any rehearsals of that. Because when we rehearsed the scene, I didn't have that in it.
Right.
So we're shooting the scene with Karen Pittman. And she's about to leave, and Edie walks in. And I forgot that I told Edie to be there.
Yeah.
And then it's like weird because she's there with this woman I was just with.
Yeah. And
then the Karen Pittman leaves, and I go to Edie, and she looks weird.
Yeah.
And I'm really in a real place.
Yeah.
And I said, what's up with you? And she says, I've got good news. And I go, what? She says, I'm okay. And it fucking hit me like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
I never experienced something like this. She said this thing to me, and I was like, that's my sister. And I was afraid to even consider the possibility that she was dying.
Right.
And she's going to be okay. And now I'm upset that she was dying.
Yeah.
It hit me so hard. I mean, I'm getting emotional now.
Yeah.
I fucking lost it.
Yeah.
I just like, I started to cry. And then I wanted to hug her, and I thought, I can't. She's not like that. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Sylvia doesn't like to be hugged.
Right.
So I just kind of stood there, and she stood there kind of gasping.
Yeah.
And then we hugged awkwardly.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then that line that Vernon gave me was just perfect. It was perfect.
It was a pretty outstanding line.
Yeah, no, it was great. So that was another time I got really hit hard.
Well, I saw you going through it, but do you feel when you look at this thing, and outside of whatever the finances are, none of that's important to me. We because you're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
So when you look at this thing, do you feel like you've exercised something?
It was a big deal.
But can you identify what was this doing inside of you?
I don't know, man. I mean, I feel like it wasn't just me because we all shared this thing.
Right.
Every week we would sit down with a new script and we would talk about it, and then we'd run through it and we'd go, wow. Tuesday we would just burn through the script, like on the set. Just burn through it again and again. And then we slap on microphones like on our chests and let the cameras watch us do it so we could start to get a sense of how to shoot it. But
so you had a real community. You had a family.
Yeah, exactly. And I had
theater.
And we're like working through it. And starting with not knowing it and saying, what do I say? Like, first we would do it on book. Everybody's staring down at the script. So we just are all hearing it. But no one's connecting because you're not looking at anybody. You're looking at a script. Then you put the scripts down and you read through it and you look at each other. But then you have these big moments, but then you see someone just die on camera because they forgot their lines. I mean, not on camera, but we go, what do I say here?
Yeah.
And then you get piecing through it. And then we go to lunch. Then we come back, put the microphones on. And now everybody kind of starting to know it. And then we would talk about it and go like, wow, this one's really, I'd written them months before. So it was like I was discovering each one with the actors. And then I would be like, all these tracks in my head running at the same time because it's like Steve Buscemi walks in the room and he starts doing the scene. And I'm like, I'm feeling all these things about my brother.
Yeah.
And I'm also thinking, God damn it, is this guy turning in a great fucking performance?
Yeah.
And how does he know all of his lines? I don't know any of my lines. He so gives a shit about this crazy thing I wrote. And he loved it. Him and Edie and Alan, all of them loved working on it. And they would tell me this over and over again, that they loved working on it. And then the show would go out and the world would see it, the little world that was watching it.
Yeah.
And the way that people were expressing their appreciation, most of the people that write sort of like TV recaps were ignoring it. But a couple were recapping it, and I would read those.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of emails, and I was reading them. I don't read emails, but I was reading them because they were all very profound, and people were very upset by what they were watching and compelled by it. And I thought, this is really fucking big, small and big.
Yeah.
And we just all knew we were doing. And the bar felt so real to me, that fucking bar.
Yeah.
That Amy Silver, our old friend from the bartender at the Paradise in the 80s.
Yeah, she designed it.
She built this bar that lived for us.
Yeah. And your guy Paul, was on.
Paul, my guy Paul Kessner, and a big thing that happened was the editor, because I always edited my own show, but I let her have it, and she really earned the job on episode 3 because she stayed on my face when she was telling me about my son, and I was crying. And when I saw the edit, she doesn't cut away from me once. It's a really long reaction shot. Yeah. And I was like, defend that. That's indulgent. And she said, I can't do it any other way. She said, you have to. She said every time I watch this, it makes me feel all these things. And when I cut to her, I don't feel them in this one thing. So I started this thing I do with an editor now, which is she does something I don't like. Yeah. And instead of saying change it, I say, why'd you do it? And she tells me something, and I go, well, I hadn't thought of that, and I let her have it. Yeah. So she started shaping how the show feels, but never editing, never shoring up, never shortening moments, only shifting around where the cameras are, because they're all an isolated record, and putting the pieces together. Jesus, Paul Simon making the song for me that made me cry every time I heard it.
And then he shows up in the last episode.
Yeah, he shows up in the last episode, and then the way we used America, Paul and I would become pals at that time, and he told me, he said the sound of silence, Paul Simon said this to me, on your show is really deafening. It's really hard to take. And he said, put a little music in there. Make it come out of the jukebox. Yeah. I said, well, I got to get that music somewhere. And he goes, well, why don't you use your favorite song? And he was being nice because I had told him that America is my favorite song. And I said, can I have it? He said, of course you can have it. He gave me America. But yeah, and then when it came down to that, and when Pete had left for an episode and he was gone, there was this episode about Pete being gone. Yeah. I was such a mess that week because I missed Steve, and I was scared for the character, and I was mad at myself for writing what I did about him.
So you're having this very real personal struggle with your creation while you're acting in it.
Yeah, so I don't know where it all came from, And I did something I never did as an actor, which is I resisted feeling anything. I was like, I don't want to feel this. It's too much. Yeah. Like I really did. I was like, I don't care if the show's good or not. I can't let these feelings out. It's too much.
Well, the personal catharsis of you engaging this way, and having these.
Yeah, I'm sorry I keep going.
Very real experiences. No, it's great.
The thing that was important to me, one thing about the way I did it was I didn't want to have to tell people, like, I promise you this will be funny. I promise you this will be good even. I just wanted to lay it out there. But say, if you want to watch it, you can watch it.
But all these things you're talking about, the life of the show and the life that you lived in it and these performances and this collaborative experience and the courage of making it a tragedy definitively.
Yeah, it really is.
Is something that it's not been done. For me, like, it's a weird thing that my experience is like, this should be 2 days of theater. Like, you should put this up.
Right.
On Broadway.
But that's the funny thing, is that this is exactly what it belongs as. It's just this 10-part thing that
No,
you
I know
watch.
that. I know. But the theatricality of it.
Yeah.
To have that experience where you let these pauses happen and you let these things be open-ended, you let these emotions happen, and you let these horrible people, some of them, have their time.
Well, like with the scene with Laurie, I thought that what I learned from writing that one was that you've got a big issue between two people with a lot of frayed ends to it and a lot of conflict and a lot of hurt. And the two of them try to figure it out. And one person says, here's 4 ways to approach it that could help you. And the other person says, I can't do any of them because I love too much or I'm too scared.
Right.
And then the other person goes, well, then don't do any of it and just keep doing it. Keep doing it. And the other person goes, yeah, I guess that's what I'm going to do. And kind of fuck you, but also how you doing, and then just walk away.
But you needed to unload.
I mean, that's a conversation.
Sure.
that's how people talk to each other. Once you've lived a lot of life, especially when you get in your 40s and 50s and beyond, you get to a point where it's like, we can exchange a few words, but we're not going to fix nothing.
Right.
It's all dug in.
Yeah.
And you never could have fixed it. All you can do is like chat for a few minutes with somebody who's sort of walked the same roads as you and compare notes.
I do it every week.
Yeah, exactly. And it can hurt real bad sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm like in a weird place of mourning from this show.
Yeah.
I still, like you can see, I get like emotional about it, and I cry about the show a lot.
It's a relationship.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I miss it a lot, you know?
Yeah.
And I want to do it again. I can't. I knew that at one point this is a 10-act play and it's going to be over. And there's ways we could continue, and that bar's in storage, and I've thought about writing other things, and I might. You know, this kid Horace at the end.
Yeah.
That's I don't know if you know who that was, but that's Angus, not Angus. Angus T. Jones. He's the kid on 2.5 Men.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's the boy of 2.5 Men.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's he walked off of 2.5 Men, number one show on television for 12 years. Walked off of it because he felt it moral conflict with the show because he's a Christian. And I found that really fascinating, that somebody that walks away from a huge job because he doesn't feel right about it. And that made me think about Horace in my show, this kid who, and his son who doesn't speak to him, who judges him so much that he won't speak to him.
Right.
Thinks he's such a terrible man that he's not worth his fucking time, his own father.
Yeah.
Just like I am with my dad.
Right.
That's who I am. And I thought about that, and I talked to Angus on the phone, and I said, I want you to play a scene. You have 3 lines. He's in Colorado. I'm like, I want you to fly in and play this one scene.
Does he act anymore?
Nah, I mean, not much. Not really. And I said, I want you to play a guy in a world that's very amoral, but you're not. In your mind, you're moral.
Yeah.
And we talked about the idea that when you make yourself moral, you separate yourself from other people, because most people aren't. So you isolate yourself. And he came and he played that part. So there's ways forward with it, and I don't know if I'm going to take them. I may leave it at where it is. But one thing I know for sure is that I'll do something like this again.
Right. That's it. Well, that's the important thing.
Yeah, I will do something just like this again. For sure.
You've outdone yourself, and you've taken yourself personally and creatively to this other level, and you've discovered amazing truths.
And the only thing that matters to me is that I can keep doing it, and all I need for that is for it to get close, at least, to being like it never happened financially.
Yeah.
And then I'll put it on somewhere like Netflix where a lot of people can see it and sample it. They won't have the experience that they had, the people
the secret people.
No one will ever see it the way they did until I do it again.
Yeah.
Which is this, but nobody will ever see Horace and Pete that way again. That you don't know how many you're going to see. You don't know what the next one's going to be. You don't know when you might see the next one.
Right.
I mean, for the first few weeks, nobody knew it was going to be every Saturday. I didn't promise that.
Yeah.
That'll never happen again. Or that something like this would never exist and then it did. That, no matter what I do, I'll never get that back again. I'll never get the thing back of posting it on my website and sitting and watching Twitter.
Yeah.
And then sending out the email and seeing Twitter, somebody writes,
what the fuck?
What the fuck is this? Did anybody get this email? What the fuck is this? And I'm like, it's 68 minutes, so they haven't watched it yet. 20 minutes in, people are like, I saw the whole thing. It's great. They couldn't have. They couldn't have. They were just that eager to say something. But just to watch the world take it in, and it was such a fucking wonderful thing. It was worth all of it. So I'll do it again. I don't need to make money on this. I don't need to. You know, I like a lot of people to see it.
Yeah. LouisCK.net.
LouisCK.net. It's $31. You can just watch the whole season.
Just fucking, like, I don't get $31. That's a week of coffee.
Yeah,
I don't understand how people prioritize things. They can't, you know what I mean? Like,
people want to feel like it's fair. This is why. And I understand it now because I studied this.
Yeah. It's
not that they feel like that's too much money. I can't afford it.
Yeah.
It's that they don't want to be ripped off and they want to feel like it's on equity and the thing that they didn't think through, which why would they? Is that I'm on the head of the stream of this thing. I'm like in the mountains of the stream. And most shows make their first round of revenue on ads.
Yeah.
And then by the time they get to Netflix, they've made some profit already.
Yeah.
But I don't have that. This was the first. The people watching it, they're the first run people.
Right.
And that had value to some people. and they watched it. Anybody who didn't have value to, I didn't care to convince them or to advertise to them or promote to them. I could have easily.
Yeah.
But I thought it's better to let it grow exactly the size of people that it really needs.
Right. And also, that just by nature of it, fundamentally it's not for everybody.
No, it sure isn't. It would have been a real mistake to get out in front of this show and say, this is going to be great, it's going to be funny, and to have billboards and shit like that. And especially because I was coming from a place, this is a weird part of it. I had a show on for 5 seasons. It was nominated for Best Comedy Series the last 3.
Yeah.
We won a bunch of Emmys over the years. So I realized the success of my show is going to hurt the next thing I do. It's going to hurt it. It can't help it. It's going to bring too many eyeballs and expectations to it. And especially once I realized what this thing was.
Well, but
I thought if I bury it deep in a fucking mountain and it has like a little beep beep signal, like only the people will come to it who are likely to like it.
But also, you created a space to allow yourself to grow creatively. You did what an artist does. Because this business is built on people repeating themselves.
Yeah.
Even your show.
Very good point. Yeah.
Structurally,
yes.
It became not predictable, but it's like there was a stylistic predictability to it.
Yep.
And that's what made it, what made people kind of like, oh yeah, it's Louis.
That's
right.
That's right.
So in order to disengage from that, you had to disengage from it.
That's right. I had to completely.
Right.
And then start from somewhere so far away from the center and just quietly drop it. Not even ask people to watch it. Just tell them it exists.
Well,
then I'm not asking for nothing. I'm just making it. And you guys come if you want.
Well, you're the real fucking deal, Lou.
I love you, Mark.
I love you too. You did a great thing, buddy. And there's not many real artists around, and Jesus Christ, buddy.
There's a bunch. There's a bunch of
but
them, and nobody's paying attention.
No, but just I don't want to discredit anyone's art, and I know there's a lot of real artists, but to be at the stature you're at, and to afford yourself and take the risk to find the freedom to take a tremendous risk on so many levels, and really insulate yourself long enough and thoroughly enough to do it and execute it. Not everybody does that.
Well, it's a short life, and if you keep repeating your success, you're living shorter time. Like, in other words, you're going to end up looking back at your life in sections.
Right.
And so, not in years.
Yeah.
So, for me, it's like the years I did Louis.
Yeah.
And that's one.
Yeah.
That's a one thing.
Right.
Then there's the Horace and Pete. That's one thing.
Yeah.
If I did Louis for 15 years, that means I got less. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
I wanted to do more. I wanted to make more. I want to do a bunch of shows before I die. I'm 48, and most people make it to, 80 if they're good. So I ain't got that many left,
I know. Me neither. I'm having a hard time knowing what to do with my mornings.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's an interesting and it's a luxury problem in some ways, given our position.
It definitely is, and I don't know. I don't think but it's an earned luxury.
Sure,
because a lot of people that are coming up, they look at guys like you and guys like me, and they go, "Well, look what they got."
Yeah,
I mean, they don't have to worry because look what they got. Look at the opportunities they got.
Yeah, we worry all the time.
But how did we get to this place? We do have advantages.
Mm-hmm.
And the luxury of some choices.
Right.
But how did we get those? What did we do to pay into those? Were we born with that?
No.
We fucking slogged it with no hope of reaching this.
I know.
For each of us, about 25 to 30 years of just running in place and building skill.
And not knowing if anything was going to work out.
Not knowing if it was going to work out. And thinking, actually, the odds were very against.
Yeah.
And you and I both suffer from PTSD from our early careers that we're only now starting to reckon with. That's an investment, and that's a commitment. And it started a long time ago.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like every time I know anybody who's been doing this like 10 years, and they go, well, it's just not fair. I don't get opportunities. You just haven't hung in there long enough.
I know.
Why wouldn't it take years and 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 years
to be great?
To be to get to make TV for a living. What an insane payoff.
It should take that long.
It should take
There'd be less garbage.
That's right. That's right. A lot of people get it pretty quick. But you can tell they got it quick.
You can, and then you can see them go away, and then some of them come back. I always love those guys. The guys who get the big breaks, like Kevin Hart and Bill Burr, who got sent up the flagpole, didn't work out. Right. They went back to the grind, come out bigger than ever.
That's a real story. If you can get through that, if you can hit and die and then come back, you are something. Yeah. That's what Chris Rock did. Chris Rock did SNL.
Yeah.
that's the biggest break you could ask for at the time.
Yeah.
Fucking stunk.
Yeah.
On SNL.
Yeah.
During a time where SNL stunk.
Yeah.
And then he disappeared. And that was like, that's what happened to Chris Rock.
Yeah.
And then there was, I think you might have been with me when he came to Caroline's to headline for an hour. So we went, let's go watch Chris Rock do an hour.
Yeah.
And
like,
meanwhile,
holy
we're sitting around New York like, why doesn't somebody give me something?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm funny. I got 20 funny
I want to
minutes.
do Letterman.
Yeah. And then we sat in the back and watched him do an hour. And at the end of the hour, everybody's on their feet.
Yeah.
And all the comedians are bent over with their heads in their hands going, what the fuck am I doing with my goddamn life?
Right.
God damn it, is that guy good? So, But yes, the hitting and then dying and...
Well, I'm fortunate in that
climbing out of
I'm still waiting to hit, which is a great feeling.
You have hit.
I'm kidding.
You've offered
There's
something.
slow build.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. I love you. Go do your
Love you
shows.
too, man. Thank you.
Yep. He's a character, but he's also a very prolific and brilliant artist. That guy, and